Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pot Strickland. I'm your host, Shorty Poo, and this is episode 557. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Stacy. That is at StacyPatton89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Wacky Wednesday. Oh, it's not raining today, so that's always a win.
That's a plus over in Seattle, I guess. It's sunny here. It's actually not freezing, so that's good.
Well, it's always sunny
here
in upstate New York, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about the Knicks. Maybe for the first time a depressing Knicks podcast this year. We'll do that. But before I do that, I do have to make a few announcements. First, that Strickland has a YouTube channel where you may watch this podcast. If you haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, and leave this comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.thestrick.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store. There's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we got it. Strickland also has a Patreon that you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's $6 tier that gets you access to Pot Strickland, this podcast that I serve Friday with Prize. You also get access to Takes Me Off His Bozos podcast with Spider Seal, aka Doug along with Attack Fighter, and you get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. So further tiers, there's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, the pod that hosts with YC, where we're ranting and raving about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, our staff. And you get access to Strictly NFL, which you guessed it is podcast about the NFL that is hosted by Constantine Metricos and Desmond Novak. Their further tiers, $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and potentially host a podcast alongside yours one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not, necessarily possible that you. And none of this would be possible without our sponsor, FanDuel. FanDuel has you covered for all your betting needs throughout the NFL playoffs, NBA regular season, and anything else that you so desire. FanDuel, check it out. Okay, the Knicks have lost 4 in a row. Last time we talked, they were 23-9. They are now 23-13. They lost 4 in a row. They lost a frustrating game to the Spurs that really they fell apart in the end of the first half, second half. They got absolutely mollywopped by the Hawks in a game that was not competitive, but at least somewhat understandable given how shorthanded they were. They got pretty much run out of the gym by the Sixers, and then they had what I would say qualifies as a complete no-show. You can't even call it a meltdown, because to melt down you have to be up at some point. At no point in that game were they in it. It didn't feel that way. They were embarrassed. They were embarrassed from start to finish. They didn't compete on an individual level, on a collective level. I think Mike Brown has not had his best stretch as a coach going back to the second half of that Spurs game and since then. And there's a lot going wrong right now for this team. Would I be ringing the alarm bells and all those things? I'm not, but I'm not going to blame fans if they are, because that's as bad a 4-game stretch. I mean, look, the Spurs won again. Like, I think that's a frustrating loss, but it's not the end of the world. I think people can live with that. But the 3 losses since then have been really not competitive. They've just not been really that competitive down the stretch of these games. They are starting these games listlessly on defense. There's zero resistance at the point of attack. There's zero resistance in transition. Guys are not on a string. I mean, that's probably being generous to say they're not on a string. They're barely making first rotations, let alone second, third, fourth rotations. The defensive rebounding has cratered over this last stretch since the cup final. It's been bad. I think they're 15th in defensive rebound percentage since then. They are collectively struggling right now. And I think we can go through a number of players. Mikal Bridges has been poor. OG Anunoby has been poor. Karl Anthony Towns, he may as well have not been on the floor against the Pistons, because he didn't seem like he wanted to be. He had 6 points, 1 rebound, I believe, in 27 minutes. That's, that's at least as bad as that Bucks game that he had earlier in the year. It was an atrocious performance by Karl Anthony Towns, but I think the guy who I personally feel very strongly about this, who deserves and needs to be better and has really let himself and his teammates down over, I think personally, since the Cup final, has been Jalen Brunson. He is the franchise player. He is the guy who has kind of given this organization and this regime in particular, the Leon Rose, in the Leon Rose era, a sense of legitimacy and the belief that they can compete, they can contend, they can strive to win a championship. And I still believe those things are on the table for them. And I believe Jalen Brunson is critical to that. And he simply needs to be better. I think offensively, he's been in a weird stretch where it feels like he is reverting a little bit towards more of the tendencies from last year where he had the ball in his hands a lot. The uptick is not super drastic, but if you just kind of look at it, prior to the Cup final, leading up to the Cup final, he was averaging 92.1 touches per game, and he had 7.9 minutes time of possession per game. Since the Cup final, that's at 97.7 touches per game, 8.6 minutes time of possession. So he's definitely been on the ball a bit more and holding on to the ball a bit more as well. I think that his movement off the ball has been lackluster, and it's not just him. Mikal Bridges' movement off the ball has been poor. OG Anunoby has not been as active a cutter. I don't need to go down the list. I think it's a collective thing. And to bring it back to Brunson, even with his, whatever, what I would call my criticisms of his process offensively, the Knicks offense is still humming when he's on the floor. So I think they have 120 point off. I'll check it out again, but I think they have 120 offensive rating since the Cup final with Jalen Brunson on the floor. The problem is they are getting blitzed. They're getting blitzed defensively with him on the floor. And we all have the understanding, and I think everybody understands that, like, Jalen Brunson is always going to present difficulties for you on defense. He obviously has size limitations. He obviously has limitations as far as lateral agility. He is never going to be a particularly strong help defender, either in playing the passing lanes or at the rim, because he's a little guy and he doesn't have any phenomenal wingspan or great vertical pop. These are just fundamental realities that are part of his existence as an NBA player. You deal with that because he's worth it offensively. But that doesn't mean that he can let go of the rope to the degree I feel that has happened defensively with him. You can watch these games. You can find sloppy rotations, lazy defense, not getting back in transition because he's too busy yelling at the ref about a call that he feels was missed. There are moments where not moments, it's constant right now. He's just completely over-helping for no apparent reason, gets caught in no man's land, gives up one pass away 3-point shots. That's been a constant feature of these recent stretches. You also have, and this has been, I think, a targeted thing that he just has to be better about this. You have to want to box out. And if you don't box out, especially in the league now with how teams are crashing the offensive glass, you're going to get punished. And you can go back to that Celtics game that they lost 123-117, which was probably his worst game of the year, though I don't know at this point, maybe they're racking up here. But he was awful in that game, and part of what they attacked was him not boxing out or him not, or obviously, again, because of his size, he's always going to be somewhat of a liability on the glass, but you got to box out. You got to fight for position, and he didn't do it that game, and he hasn't done it all in this recent stretch. And, maybe am I being too harsh on him because he's still producing numbers on an individual level? Yeah, that's definitely possible, and it's not solely on him. Obviously, when you collapse the way they have these last 4 games, it's not just on the one player, but he is the franchise player. He is the captain. They made a big fucking deal about this, right? Announcing that he was the captain and all this stuff. He's gotten all these accolades. He's gotten a lot of praise for his clutch time performances and all these things. Part of leadership is lifting guys and lifting your teammates when shit isn't easy and things aren't smooth and things aren't going real. It's about setting examples, being the example in a lot of ways for what other guys, how the team should play, how guys follow you. And he's been a great leader. throughout his time in New York. There's no question to me about that. But I would say in this last stretch of games, like, he's let himself down. He's let his teammates down with his approach, his demeanor at times on the floor, and his general effort level in a lot of various facets of the game. Forget the defense has been atrocious, as I mentioned. The rebounding has not been good. I think his distribution as a point guard, as a playmaker, has not been ideal. It feels like he's getting a little, not even a little. I think he's just flat out. He's getting a bad. I'll say this: he is getting a bad whistle right now. Him and SGA are both getting a bad whistle right now because they got made the poster boys for foul grifting, and those guys are being punished for it. Meanwhile, the league itself still has a widespread issue with foul grifting, but apparently, if you take care of these two guys, the problem is solved as far as the league is concerned. He's getting a bad whistle right now. There's no two ways about it. I get how frustrating that is, and I can respect it and I can understand it. But when it starts seeping into your effort, when it starts seeping into you're too busy yelling at the refs to get back on defense, you're screaming at them in the middle of a play instead of executing what you want defensive or what you need to do defensively. These are problems that cost your team points, and cost you on the margins and cost you games. And it's a bad habit. It's a really bad habit. And he's in a stretch right now where all of these things are coming to a head. Some of his offensive processing is a problem. He's pounding the ball a little bit too much. His shot selection has not been great. He's getting pissed at the refs. His defensive effort and all that stuff it's not been good. I'm not worried about it long term. He had a stretch like this basically at the exact same time last year, which culminated in what I thought was a truly embarrassing performance from him against the Thunder at the Garden. And he bounced back, obviously had a strong close to the year, and the Knicks had a good run in the playoffs. So I'm not worried about him long term, but in the moment right now, it is annoying. It is frustrating, and it is it's okay to criticize him because we know he can be better and we should expect him to be better because that's the standard he has set for himself. And that's a standard that should exist for a franchise player on a team that harbors the hopes and the ambition to contend for a championship in a given season. So he has to hit a higher standard, and he should be held to a higher standard than anybody else on this team, as far as I'm concerned. He's the leader. He's the captain. He's the franchise player. He has to carry that burden on his shoulders. That is the reality. And I wanted to say that, and then I will also say this about his issues with the refs. And we can talk about Mike Brown and some of the decisions he's making or not making that have been weird and maybe costly in this recent stretch here. Forgetting the tactical stuff and whatever. At some point, I need Mike Brown to stand up for his players with the refs. Get a fucking tech. Call out the refs after the game. Like, I appreciate that he has made it a point to try and put the onus of fighting through the adversity of missed calls or perceived missed calls anyway on his players. I appreciate that. I respect that. And I agree with that to a large amount. But I think when you see the amount of bitching and complaining that this team is doing at this point, and I don't actually think it's that crazy because I'm watching these games and I do think they're getting a bad whistle. I think Karl-Anthony Towns has gotten a bad whistle all year. I think Jalen Brunson's been getting a terrible whistle right now. I think, I thought that Hawks game was officiated very weirdly. You can go to the Pistons, whatever. You can do any game. And I'm just saying, the way I feel about it right now, I think they're getting a bad whistle. And even if they're not, when you see your players, they feel like they are. And if you're not saying something as a coach, if you're not fighting that battle as a coach, and they feel like they need to advocate for themselves, and it's costing you, that's a problem. I think he has to be more vocal about it. I think he has to challenge refs. Maybe he is. I don't know. It doesn't look like he's, fighting the good fight all the time there on the sideline. I think he's having conversations with the refs. and it seems very even keeled and level headed and jovial. But that can't be the only tenor you take. I think he has to raise his voice. I think he's got to be more vocal and fight for his players, because when you see shit like, look, again, the Knicks lost by 31 to the Pistons. They were not going to win that game just because they got a better whistle. But there's a few plays where Brunson's clearly getting hacked across the arms. You're not getting a call. Go berate the ref. Go get a tech. Get a tech. He hasn't gotten a tech yet this year. To my knowledge, Mike Brown does not have a technical foul this year. We're 36 fucking games into the season? 37 if you count the cup? I don't know. I think that's kind of weird, man. I think that's kind of weird. And I think he's got to be more vocal and fight for his players with officials. I'm sure that they send in stuff to the league, as far as video and all those things, but it needs to be more than that. And I just think that is something I feel quite strongly right now is something he needs to take upon himself, because I do think him not doing it is leading to players taking it upon themselves and it distracting them from the actual things that matter, the actual things that they can control, right? That you can control. You can control your execution, your effort, your, getting back on defense, all these things. It's affecting that. And I feel like if he starts being the voice, right, being the guy that's arguing those things, then he can go into a timeout and be like, look, guys, shut the fuck up. Stop bitching at the refs. I will handle it. I will take care of it. Leave that to me. You guys focus on what you can focus on, what you can control. Because right now I feel like there's a total slippage across the board. There's a lot of frustration that's seeping through. And I do think a lot of that, or not a majority or anything, but I do think a solid portion of that can be chalked up to frustrations with officiating. And I think as a coach, you have to do something about it, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably, I think to that kind of hypothesis that you mentioned, it probably isn't the biggest coincidence that their most listless performance was against a team that they spent 6 games getting 0 calls against, that plays, the Pistons are a dirty team, right? And they didn't seem to give a shit last night. And the Pistons did some, I mean, there's a clip where Stewart just kind of undercuts or pushes Brunson in the back in the air, and no one came to, I mean, now it's Isaiah Stewart, fine, right? That's not exactly the first guy you want to go get in his face, but there was just nothing, right? And we haven't seen that from this team. So I think that I think that you and I are not too far apart. We've seen this team go through bad stretches before for the last 5 years, right? Since that first Tibbs season, there's always been bad stretches, and ultimately what matters is what happens in the playoffs. I think there's a reason why the Knicks are still the favorites in the East, even after last night. So long term, I'm not concerned. I do think that it can become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You get mad at the refs, they retaliate even more. You get mad at the refs. And I do think, yeah, that there's a place for the coach to take a more active role there. I hate to give any credibility to Matt Barnes. And I don't want to, I still think, I believe in Mike Brown. I've been very, on the whole, I think you would probably agree, been a great addition to the Knicks. And a lot of the changes we wanted to see. But, I think that he is kind of, being kind of an asshole sometimes is something a coach needs to do. Whether that's with the players or whether that's going after the refs, right? And saying, I have your back. And there might be a little bit less of that right now. And I think you add in the fact that this is a team that knows exactly how it's going to be judged. It's not like, it's not LeBron coasting through the regular season when he already has so many rings. But this team, it probably is difficult to get up for every game, knowing that
it should not be difficult to get up for a national game against the Pistons after you've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah,
that's unacceptable.
When you take into account,
it's unacceptable. Right? No.
When you take into account the fact that they're going to beat the shit out of you and nothing's going to happen, when you take into account, like, these people are
So
human,
you
right?
fight. You fight. What are we talking about here?
Well,
So you roll over? Like,
it's a
that's your
rigged
response.
game.
Oh,
It's a rigged game
it's gonna
against
be
the Pistons
physical. No, it's not a rigged game.
because
It's
they
not a
get
rigged
calls
game.
and the Knicks
It's not a
don't.
rigged game.
You
You have
said
to play
that
the fucking
yourself.
game in front of you.
Did you watch those
No,
playoff last year?
you have to play the game in front of you. That's fucking crazy, dude. I'm sorry.
Well,
That
on
is
a regular
fucking
season
crazy.
game.
That it's okay for them
I'm not
to
saying it's
go into
okay, man.
the
I'm
Pistons game.
explaining the kind of
But
mindset that
that
can
makes
lead
no
into these
sense to me.
doldrums.
Are they competitors? Are they competitors? You
Yeah,
are
but that's
playing
not
the team that is
on aggregate.
that is
Yes,
arguably it's the team that is arguably your biggest competition in the conference. That you were 3 games behind going into that game for the number 1 seed, if that matters to you. Maybe it doesn't matter to them, and that's fine. I don't particularly care that much if they get the 1 seed or not. That's not the key to me of winning the championship. But like, this is a big game. This is a big game. You have just lost 3 in a row, and you got pretty much embarrassed against the Hawks and against the Sixers. You are playing the Pistons. This is like a marquee matchup. This is a national TV marquee matchup. I don't give a shit if you go into that game, you understand how the game is going to be called. You understand it. You understand that they're going to let the Pistons get away with stuff. You understand that you're not going to get every call. You're on the road to begin with, so you're definitely not going to get every call. You have to understand you got to battle through it. It'd be one thing. Like, I agree with you if for 3 quarters they were battling and they're not getting calls and then they're just like, and then they let go of the rope in the 4th quarter. Like, yeah, you might still criticize them, but I could understand that. What happened in that game is inexcusable. It's inexcusable. They did not compete. They didn't compete the entire night. They just came out. Brunson got some
trying to
numbers.
understand what's going on with them making an excuse. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that
I don't think what's going, but what is going on with them? Okay, I understand what's going on with them right now. They're not competing right now, whatever those reasons might be. We don't need to agree on what the reasons are that they're not giving their best effort to start games. That it feels like
I'm not saying it's an excuse. That's all.
But what I am saying is, I think, like, I for example, the Atlanta game. Just going back to that, because I feel like that game was interesting for a lot of reasons. That was 3 quarters of them not having any juice. They had no spark. They just couldn't get anything going. Defensively, they were all over the place. Offensively, they were getting bogged down for a variety of reasons related to both personnel and approach to the game, whatever. They found something in that 4th quarter, right? They put in Diarra finally. They play these bench lineups, and they make a run at least. They get back into the game a little bit. And, I never thought they were going to win that game. But at least you're like, came out of that game, and you're like, okay. Like, they needed a spark. They needed some juice. Maybe that game can help them. That hasn't been there. And what is concerning to me, what's really concerning to me about both the Sixers game and the Pistons game is these are games where Mike Brown has cut the rotation in a lot of ways, right? He is playing his top 8, 9 guys max. And those guys, look, like, aside from Deuce McBride in those games, I haven't watched anybody, really, maybe Cat a little bit in this Philly game. I haven't watched any of those guys and felt like this guy's lifting us. He's giving us a boost. He is raising the energy of the team. He is elevating right now. And that is concerning to me, because what is the, like, why is that the case? Why is it that the only guy that seems to be able to give this team any juice when they're on the floor right now is Deuce? And why does it feel, and I think this is even more kind of something to keep in mind, why does it feel like since Josh Hart went out against the Cavs, right? Sprains his ankle, goes out against Cavs. Knicks made a great comeback in that game, and I actually think in large part it was because Hart wasn't in the game. But it has felt like they have lost some of their togetherness, some of their fight, some of their physicality. Like that is very concerning to me. All those things are very concerning to me. The effort is, they have been bullied. They have been bullied in these games. Atlanta bullied them. Straight up. Atlanta bullied them. The Sixers bullied them. Detroit might as well just, that was like watching, like fucking Jake Paul get his ass beat by Anthony Joshua. Like it was ridiculous watching that game. Where is the fight? Where is any of that? And again, like I can't say this enough. Why does it feel like Deuce McBride is the only guy that is coming out in these games, at least of the main rotation players, and fighting? And if you want to talk about more tactical stuff, what is the fucking logic of starting Mitchell Robinson and having Deuce McBride come on the bench? I don't understand that at all. I have not understood it I didn't agree with it to start the year, but I'm fine with him trying it. He switched it, right? He had Deuce in the starting lineup when OG was out. They moved Mitchell Robinson to the bench. And he even said something like, I think at that time, if I remember correctly, he talked about how it felt like Mitch was in a really good groove coming off the bench and they liked it and it was really good. And Mitch was playing the best ball of the season, or his season so far. The team was playing its best ball of the season. And remind you, that's without OG Anunoby on the floor or starting because he was out hurt. And they caught a rhythm and they were in a good flow. And for some reason, now that the moment that Mitchell Robinson came back from his injury management absence, we have gone back to starting this double big lineup that has been completely ineffective, that does not provide real advantages offensively aside from offensive rebounding at times. And I think also it puts a lot more ball handling responsibility on Brunson because Towns is used more as a spacer rather than as a hub, a playmaking hub when he's at the 4 next to Robinson. And Mitch himself has not looked good in these 2 games. It's probably 2 of his worst games. And he has consistently been better off the bench than as a starter. So experimenting is fine. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's just an experiment. But if this is a continued thing where it's like, we're just going to keep trying this and Deuce will come off the bench and doesn't like Deuce, what he have 17 against Detroit and then he had 20 against Philly. He's shooting 46% from 3 on the season, by the way. Like everything is telling you this guy's having a career season. And every lineup is telling you that when Deuce McBride's on the floor, all of a sudden the team plays better. At some point that has to matter. And I also think like if we're looking for a spark, if we're saying we're going to reward, can we reward the guy that's giving you spark? Can we reward the guy that's playing with some real fucking passion and energy and physicality and fight? Is that like because that might be what this team needs. I thought it was a pretty interesting quote he had after the game against Detroit where they asked him something about the defense and he's like, "Man, did we even play defense tonight?" I don't know. Did they? Didn't seem like it. And all that just worries me. It worries me because I don't really understand it. And, like Deuce is obviously the main thing, but it's like, hey, Diawara goes from starting when we're shorthanded to now he just can't get minutes. Even though the last time he did get minutes against Atlanta, it felt like he sparked us in that 4th quarter back into the game. We need size. We need athleticism. We need something on the perimeter. With Mikal playing this poorly, with OG playing probably his worst stretch certainly of his Knicks career in terms of impact. Like we need something and we're going away from that stuff. And it just feels like convoluted in a way it was to start the year when Mike Brown was talking about he was coaching poorly and guys were confused and then he kind of figured it out. And now it feels like he's reverted back into convoluted, unnecessarily convoluted, in my opinion, stuff and making weird decisions on the fringes of the rotation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that needs to change. I think there's a million reasons. I think you've outlined before. Mitch is on a minutes restriction, so you're playing. Huck Bordy has not progressed, I think, as well as certainly you and I had hoped. He's so you're playing really your 2 only playable bigs together, and one is on a minutes restriction. There are sacrifices in terms of what's happening with Cat. I think you've also mentioned that they don't use, and this may be even more pronounced with Hart out of the lineup. They keep going to that Mitch and Brunson screen, and Mitch is not a short roll escape valve. So you're bringing 2 to the ball essentially all the time. And that could be adding to Brunson's frustration. And I do think from a cultural standpoint, if you want to shake things up, there's a one guy who plays balls to the wall, hearts out, right? But even more so, Deuce, he gives you something that nobody else on the team does. They do not have a reliable point of attack defender besides Deuce. Bridges can do it for stretches, not great at getting over screens. OG is a very good defender, but against quick guards, a maxi type, for example, it's not an ideal matchup, right? So Deuce gives you something no one else does. Um, the ball handling, I still think like he's not quite there where it really alleviates Brunson as much as you're suggesting, but it's more than obviously you get from a guy like Mitch. I do think like if you're looking at Detroit, they probably need to be able to match some size, so that might be a concern for Brown. But yeah, I think given the stage of the season, it just makes too much sense to start Deuce. Brown himself has um, you know has said the point of attack defense is really valuable to them. Um, I think that in terms of just lacking some juice, some you know that fire, right? Where I was I compared on Twitter, right? It seems like if you watch Rocky 3, um, Rocky's kind of lost his edge. His trainer dies, and Clubber Lang is talking a lot of shit and is flamboyant
Yeah,
and all that.
it's like
And that's what
it's like
yesterday.
Major League Two.
I actually never watched Major League 2, so
Oh wow, yeah.
I
Ricky
guess
Vaughn
Mitch
loses
is
his
kind of
edge.
Mitch's wild thing, right? Um, but it's like, yeah, like Clubber Lang kicks the shit out of Rocky, and Rocky just doesn't want it anymore. And so Eye of the Tiger, they need that back. Deuce is the one guy who still seems to have that spirit. So I'm completely aligned there. I do have faith that Brown is more willing to adjust. So I think again, I'm thinking about the playoffs. I don't. I anticipate actually this. You can bookmark this. My prediction is the starting lineup for the playoffs will be 5 out with Deuce, not Hart and not Mitch. By then, I think he will get there. And I could be wrong. Maybe we were so locked in on Tibbs that we don't realize that a lot of coaches are just set in their ways in many ways. I think that when tactically there are adjustments to be made. I think they need to. It's been a constant thing, right? The way teams defend Brunson, you're much more often better off screening with a guard than certainly with Mitch or a non-shooting big. If you play 5 out, it opens up more opportunities to screen with Cat. Um, I think he's done a lot of good things in terms of playing some of the, playing Diawara more. I don't know how McCullough has kind of leaped Diawara, and you saw some of the shortcomings he has on defense. I just that I have to say I'm not. I've seen Brunson go through bad stretches. I've seen. I haven't seen them. I can't remember the last time they had a 4-game losing streak. And ultimately,
I
yeah,
don't. I don't
I
think they
think
did
that
last year.
what they did.
I don't think they did last year. Yeah.
Not last year, maybe the year before. Before the, maybe I can't, certainly not after the OG trade.
I would guess
I
they
think
hadn't
after the
lost
OG
4 in a
trade,
row since 2022-23.
yeah. So maybe not even after the Hart trade. So so that's what's jarring about it. But I can't get too worked up. Like I know Brunson is not going to mope, and this is a guy since he was at fucking Villanova. This is not like this is not a guy that this kind of thing lags or stays the same. Cat is on some weird shit right now. Has been for most of the season. I'm trusting the track record. Um, Mikal, I think probably Hart being out and Deuce not playing, or that does put more pressure on him, and I think he thrives a lot more when he's not asked to guard the point of attack on both ends. And so these are things to hold Mike Brown accountable for. But like I I think we're going to look back at this zooming out. Like that's not to say there's no reason to bring up these concerns. I think we're going to look back at this at the end and be like, I don't think if they lose to Detroit or in the finals, or if they lose to Boston, Boston is already looking really good. If Tatum comes back, that becomes as serious a threat, maybe more than Detroit. I don't think we're going to look at the stretch as like the reason why, or I think these issues, I'm fairly confident will be fixed. Because I think that they're very aware of the things you're bringing up, and they're all built in the way that we've seen them be built. That they come back from everything. They lose half the team, they take Indiana to 7. Um, they're playing a suboptimal lineup. They figure out a way to. They're not getting calls against Detroit. They figure out a way to win that series. Figure out a way to beat Boston. Right. So it's just tough for me to feel like the issues with this team are not going to be fixed, especially since most of them are not really on the floor issues. Which is like, I think DJ was saying that, well, maybe this team just has a lower ceiling given the roster issues. That's where I really disagree with. I think people are way too low on Cat. I think people are way too low on the kind of fixes that are available and that Brown has shown that he's willing to lean into. And I just think that in terms of like the malaise or, body language looking bad, like we know who these guys are. Like we've seen them come through adversity and with their backs against the wall or even without it, like show out. And I can't be concerned about that just yet.
So just to provide some context here, the Knicks since the Cup final. So if you just look at the entire league, so since December 17th, they rank 25th in net rating. They have a minus 4.9 net rating. They rank 12th in offensive rating, 115.8, which is much below what they were before at 122. They are 28th in defensive rating, 120.7. Only Denver and Utah are worse than them. They are 13th in defensive rebound percentage, which is not horrific, but is far off their top level. They are 13th in offensive rebound percentage as well, which is, again, not bad, but it's far from their best. And obviously, this coincides with Mitch and Hart missing time. Like, they are losing margins that they were winning and that are fundamental to their kind of total output ceiling as a team. And they can't have that slippage and they can't have it last as long. They've got to figure it out. The defensive side of the ball has been atrocious. I don't even know what to say other than that. You can deal with bad execution. You could deal with some bad effort. You can't have both be consistent. And both the effort and the execution have been bad, especially in these last 4 games. I mean, especially these last 4 games. Oh my God, it's been terrible. They can't contain dribble penetration. And it's easy to just be like, well, that's, Brunson is bad and like that's causing an issue. And like, yeah, that is definitely a big part of the issue. I agree with that. But it goes beyond that. I mean, this was the fucking most insane thing I think I've seen. OG Anunoby's been awesome as a Knick. That Hawks game, I'm just going to keep going back to it. There's so many things in that game that pissed me off. That Hawks game, there's a play right at the start of the third quarter. Knicks miss a shot, whatever it is. Hawks throw the ball ahead to Riza Shea. Okay? Riza Shea has the ball about, I don't know, maybe 17, 18 feet out on the right wing, kind of. OG backs up. Like, he gives him a fucking runway for no reason, basically, to get all the way to the rim and gives him an easy finish at the rim. He did not body him. He didn't meet him. He didn't make him feel there was no physicality. And it was like he was just trying to avoid contact. And that play, to me, sums up everything that's going wrong with this team over the last 4 games. They have a lack of physicality defensively, containing the point of attack. They have a lack of physicality offensively. Nobody wants to fight through fucking hand fighting. Nobody is fighting through contact. You look at their screening game and all that stuff is getting ineffective because of it. You have to play through it. You have to show more fight, and they're not showing it right now. It is worth mentioning that I think, you look at the 4 teams that kind of made the NBA Cup, at least in Vegas. All 4 of those teams have had interesting little stretches here in that run. The Spurs they lost, back-to-back games to like Utah, and I forgot somebody else at home. They just lost last night to Memphis. The Thunder got absolutely smoked the other night by the Hornets. They've had a weird stretch games here too. They've gotten embarrassed by the Spurs a couple times. We've seen Orlando be very up and down as well. So it's not like the Knicks are the only team that kind of dealt with it. Actually, Orlando, the Knicks have a minus 4.9 net rating since the Cup. Orlando has a minus 4.6. So the Knicks are, they are definitely going through it right now. They're not alone. They're not alone. We've seen a history of teams that win the NBA Cup or whatever, that they deal with the drop off right after. I get that. But it just simply they need to turn it around. And I think that turnaround starts directly with the head of the snake and Jalen Brunson. And we can talk about rotation changes and stuff like that Mike Brown would need to make. I think Diawara is somebody that needs to get more minutes. I would push back a little bit. I know you said Huck Porty was struggling, and he hasn't been very up and down for sure. He's also played very limited minutes, so I think it's important to understand that sometimes when he comes on the floor and looks overwhelmed, it's because he's not up to NBA speed or not used to NBA speed. So there's an adjustment going on there. I actually thought in that Hawks game he played really well. He was one of the few guys that showed some fight. He had I think he had a career high in rebounds, 16 or 17 in that game. He was diving all over the floor for loose balls. Like, he was competing. And I get why he doesn't play when Towns and Mitch are available. I'm not suggesting that you need to force feed him.
But if you're going to start them,
then
he probably should play more, right? If you're going to start them together and Mitch is on a minutes limit, so yeah.
I agree. So I think that's something to look at. At least giving him an opportunity. I don't think I need to see Yabusele again. Like, I get that probably you can't totally bench him, especially if Mitch is out, and they had a game where Mitch and Cat were out, so it's like you're gonna have to play him. But I'm cool with not seeing that guy play much more. I think any second that he even wants to think about playing Yabusele, I think that should immediately just mean he should know in his brain that should trigger him to play Diawara instead. I think Diawara has something. They need his size. They need his physicality. They need his effort. His motor it might be the best on the team. Granted, he's playing very limited minutes, but he's out there. He looks like he's fucking ready to kill someone for minutes. So I would play him more because I think they need that spark right now. But I do want to talk about Karl-Anthony Towns because Karl-Anthony Towns has had a very odd season. He's made some, let's say, cryptic comments since from the start of the season. He said some stuff in the last few days about, needing to adjust and all these things. He has cut at times a more sullen figure than we're used to from Cat, who is kind of like a happy-go-lucky, carefree type of dude. And I will float a theory about why this might be the case. My theory is that he caught wind or got word or something that he was maybe the guy that was on the table in a construction of a Giannis trade that the Knicks had in conversations with the Bucks. Because before the start of the year, it was literally right before the start of the year, we got that story about how Giannis, Giannis had looked to get out this summer, and the one team he wanted to go to is the Knicks. But I thought what was curious about that story was in the story itself, they made it very clear about like the dates of, the date of when they apparently had these discussions started after Mikal Bridges signed his extension. And at that point, he couldn't have been traded. So there's no way. I mean, maybe you could have a preliminary talk about it, but he wouldn't have been on the table at that point if they're making an offer for Giannis. We know contractually, Cat's salary is kind of the easiest way to get to the Giannis number. And I think it's been interesting that there have been a couple of times this Giannis story has come up. Once before the start of the season, once a few weeks into the season. That after each of those, there was some type of leak that went to kind of local beat guys. I think it was Begley that had it. That the Knicks have no desire to shake things up. They're very happy with their rosters. They like what they have. They think they can compete with this. They have no interest in making a trade. Which felt a little bit like messaging, like, hey, guys, nobody's at risk here. We're good. We're happy with this team. Like, let's all keep our eyes forward and move towards the same goal here. But yeah, that's what I think. I think that he caught wind of it, and I think it's affecting his mood a little bit. And it wouldn't surprise me because I don't think anything's going to happen this year. Like, I don't think, and regardless of whether Giannis gets traded to the Knicks or not, I don't think he's getting traded this year. I've never thought he's getting traded this year. And it would not surprise me in the least if Cat played better after the trade deadline. That would not surprise me at all. I do think that he's probably that's my theory anyway. My theory is that he heard something like that,
You don't think he's hurt
and
or less than
I
100%?
think I know I think the hurt part of it is fair. I'm just talking more about like beyond the actual production. I think there have been weird. He's had weird energy at times that has been like, especially in the Bucks games, he's been weird, right? It's like he's trying too hard to prove a point, and he ends up playing like horribly. And I don't know. I just get the sense that there's something going on there with him that isn't just about how he's feeling physically, but
Do you
maybe
think
is more
all
mental.
the I mean, I think since the Knicks trade, one, he's had the New York media spot. He is the favorite. Let's lay the cards on the table, right? Cat is a finesse player, right? That is, I think it's a little bit wrong. I think like there was that play last year where like Wagner just like hit him in the throat. He looks at the ref like, "Are you serious, bro?" And then spins around and hits a shot. Right? I've seen him attack guys at the rim, probably sometimes too much, with physicality. So I think it's a little bit unfair. But he's a finesse player in a town that seems to really value. Like we like that about Brunson, right? He's a small guy, but he like plays like a pit bull on offense, right? Um, and then you have all this, the zesty stuff, whatever. Do you think that affects Cat at all? Because I do think it's a lot
No,
more
I
since the New York trade.
I don't think so. I mean I don't. I obviously can't say for sure. I don't think that's the case because I feel like that's existed with him forever. And yes, I know that it's maybe gone to a more, there's been more volume of that stuff since he got traded to the Knicks, but I think that's always existed. I don't feel like that's what's going on with him. But yeah, I do think that there's something going on there with like, he's not been the most thrilled about his role offensively. And what I will say about his role offensively is he played his best stretch. His best stretch of this season came when he was at the five, not when he was next to Mitch. It was when he started at the five in that run up to the Cup final. I thought he was fucking great in that game against Orlando in the semis. He was great in that game. I thought he was that was one of my favorite Cat games. I thought he was so good in that game. And the Cup final was weird. He didn't have his best night. I don't think he was awful, but it wasn't his best game. But he's not been
Difficult matchup
at the
too, right?
same
Like
level. Yeah.
playing an
Well, yeah, it's
MVP
the matchup.
candidate.
Yeah. He hasn't been quite at the same level since then. Um, but I think some of his it's interesting to me that even if he wasn't his best after the Cup final, you didn't sense any like unhappiness or anything like that. I think the honest thing, like I said, I think that's part of this whole thing for him. But these last two games, he's talked about, not being, adjusting and it being a process and he needs to like whatever. It's interesting to me. Those come as comments when he is at the four and not the five. He's starting next to Mitch, not starting as the center. And I know people will be like, well, him and Mitch play together even when he starts at the five. I think there's a very big difference between how the offense starts games, how he is involved offensively to start games when he is at the four and when he is at the five. He is much more involved offensively when he is at the five. I think you get better effort from him over the course of 48 minutes as a result. And I think because of some of the issues that we're having recently with, Brunson pounding the ball a little bit much. And I think there's been a lot of issues with even getting the ball to the big guys because of how teams are defending us physically and overplaying us to an extent because they're like beat us off the dribble. We dare you to beat us off the dribble. Um, and yeah, I think all of that is part of some of the struggles he's having. And look, like he's got to own it himself. Like you can't be frustrated to the point that you put in whatever the hell that was against Detroit. Like that can't happen. That just cannot happen. Like you have to play through it. Again, I'll never call Cat a leader in the way that Brunson is a leader or supposed to be a leader. Yeah, Josh Hart even, but he's one of the most recognized players in the team. He's multiple NBA guy, multiple All-Star, number one overall pick. Like he's all the eyes, all these accolades. Um, it's he has to be part of setting the example and setting a standard and consistently meeting that standard. He didn't do it against Detroit. He was awful. He was terrible. I mean, the whole team was, but he was terrible. And that can't happen. But like, do I get some? I do get some of his frustrations offensively because I think they're again like he is going to have more value to you at the 5, and he is better for the offense at the 5 than he is at the 4. At the 4, he just has to operate in a lot of ways like a floor spacer, right? Because Mitch is going to be occupying space. He's not going to space the floor in any way, really. So he has to exist as a spacer, and he's more on the periphery of the offense. He is more kind of operating off ball and, a kind of passenger to actions rather than being central to them. So I get some of that frustration. And I think it's fair to be a little bit frustrated where it's like, hey, like, I thought we had figured this out. Like, I thought we had figured out that, like, it works better when I'm at the 5 and Mitch is coming off the bench and that we had settled on that and everything was good. And now we're going back to this thing that quite honestly has not worked anytime they've started. Like, even if you go back to the playoffs last year, when they started those guys together, that was not great. They were much better when they were able to get to those lineups off the bench. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that Mitch is better off the bench. He's not, he is just simply better off the bench at this point in his career, as far as I can tell. And the fact that he's on this minutes limit makes it so fucking obvious he should be coming off the bench. Like, you can't play starter minutes. Why the fuck are you starting? That's very, very basic.
Do you think if he comes off the bench, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I do agree with you. Do you think if he comes off the bench, part of the calculus is, well, we're more likely to be in the penalty at that point, and you don't want to be in the penalty when Mitch is on the floor?
No, like I also, who cares? Like, what this feels like. I get what you're saying, and I'm not. I know you're not. You just said it. You said you're playing devil's advocate. This is the type of like insane micro logic to me that is. It's like you're like obsessing over details that are maybe important, but you're also missing on macro stuff that exceeds that in value. Like, what is best for you as a team? Is it to worry about what would happen if you're in the penalty in this? No, it's probably like, hey, if we get a team into the penalty early, that's probably like a pretty good place to be in general. So like, what's worry? Look, we can cross that bridge when we get to it. And really the evidence doesn't match up with that. Like, again, the Knicks have played their best ball starting Cat at the 5 and bringing Mitch Robinson off the bench. Like, and it's not just because Cat plays better or that starting lineup plays better. Just look at the Christmas game, right? Like, fucking Mitch comes off the bench in both halves and he gives you a spark. And he was vital to them winning that game in the fourth quarter because he's fresher. Like, you want him for those closing moments. You want him fresher. And on top of that, Cat and Mitch played minutes together in those fourth quarter, and they were good. They're good when they play together in the flow of the game off the bench against kind of mixed lineups of reserves and starters versus when they're just the starting lineup against the opponent starters. It hasn't worked. It hasn't, or at least hasn't been highly effective, to say the least. So I don't know why you're continuing to chase that. I think it would work better if OG and McCall were better creators, were more dynamic off the dribble. It would probably work better if Cat was more the same archetype of player as Randall, where he can kind of make things happen from a more stagnant standstill and that type of play in that way. But that's not really what it's not what you want from Cat. It's not what you get Cat for, right? You get Cat because he can play both positions. But I think you have to be very purposeful about how you deploy him in those positions. At the 5, it's a lot easier, right? Because he just naturally kind of exists in a world where, because of his archetype, because of his skill set, he opens up all these advantages for you just by being at the 5 on the floor. At the 4, I think you have to be a lot more purposeful about it. Like, when we go to that lineup, who do we play him with? And if that's how we're going to play, what are we trying to achieve in those minutes? Because quite frankly, I think if you play him at the 4, if you start him at the 4 and you start Mitch at the 5, um, your offense has to be it's going to be more stagnant. It's going to be more ISO heavy, and therefore you need to be able to win in a different way, which would basically be like you have to win the possession battle at a high level. Now, maybe that's possible whenever the Knicks decide to get their head out of their asses, especially the fucking starting 5 here. Or I mean, fuck the starting 5. I'll just say the 4 highest paid players in the team have to get their head out of their asses collectively. Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns. Now, maybe if that happens, that lineup with Mitch at the 5 will still be fine. It's possible. I don't think it's a bad lineup, to be clear, but I just struggled to see how it's their best lineup. I don't buy it. I don't buy that it's their best lineup, and I haven't bought that for a while. I think the Deuce lineup with Deuce is better. But yeah, look, it is what it is. We'll see. They're going to play the Clippers tonight, and Kawhi's been on a fucking tear here. The Clippers are not the biggest team in the world. And at some point, you should probably worry more about imposing your strengths on your opponent instead of not and maybe like imposing your actual strengths on opponents versus maybe perceived strengths. Because that's what it feels a little bit to me right now every time they start Mitch. It feels like you want that to work because you want to be big and you want to be super physical and you want to own the glass and those things. Are you actually doing those things with that lineup? It doesn't feel that way, and it hasn't felt that way for most of the year, really.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't really felt that way since the Boston series. It didn't really work as well against Indiana, right? It was better than that lineup that had played before.
Well, it worked off the bench. It worked off the bench in those games, right? It worked in game 1 and 2 off the bench. Obviously, we know we don't need to revisit game 1 and 2, what happened at the end of those. But you get my point. It's like I think even those games show you exactly how that lineup is still like it's not like you don't use it anymore, right? Just because you don't start Mitch and Cat doesn't mean you're not going to play them together. They're absolutely going to play together. But you just want to get to them in different moments of the game than I think. Because starting games is different, right? It is a different kind of thing than coming in the flow of a game off the bench and finding those different combinations in those pockets. Stacy, are you there? Okay, Stacy's having some connection issues. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy. We talked about that ad nauseum here. I'll try to get to some comments here. I know we've had a lot. Jared R says, I think an underrated aspect of the bad D is the bad offense. Harder to stop the ball and match up in transition, which is something they struggle with in general. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of it. You're missing more shots, and you're not getting as many offensive rebounds right now. So it is giving teams an opportunity to get out maybe more in transition. And you're not playing against a set defense as much. Not that the Knicks defense has been particularly good in this recent run when they even do have a set defense. But yeah, I think that's a completely fair point to make. Kenny Muir asks, would you consider changing first quarter substitution pattern? Brunson all year plays most of first quarter and is ultra aggressive, maybe take him out when Cat normally sits to allow others to get a rhythm. In general, I would just want this because I don't like guys playing entire quarters. Like it feels weird to me. In the playoffs, it's a different kind of a conversation because you do want to extend the rotation a bit, or not extend the rotation, but rather extend guys' minutes a bit. But in the regular season, I don't like it. Would I, does it help other guys get into a rhythm? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think if we're going to experiment with different lineups, I don't see an issue with experimenting with moving around a rotation or changing a rotation. I do wonder maybe if like this is something that he has talked about with Brunson and Brunson wants to be out there for an entire, like he prefers that or something. But yeah, I mean, I think Brunson has to do a better job of not just using the first quarter to get himself going, but I think also get other guys going. And really specifically, I think that he just doesn't, I don't know what it is, but it feels like he doesn't see Cat on the pick and pops a lot. I think that he misses those passes when they're open for him at times. And that's just something where, you know, I can say it and people can point it out, but ultimately he just has to kind of make that happen. Um, so we will see. Um, Sorry, trying to get to some more here. There's a lot going on in these comments. Sorry, guys. All right. Anyway, we're gonna keep going here. Stacy is back. There he is. Stacey, I wanted to throw this at you. Like we touched upon this. We touched on, you know, the team has not. They've kind of lost some sense of physicality, hustle, identity, whatever you want to call it, with Josh Hart out. One thing I think one thing he provides, and it had me. I was thinking about this last night because I have no life. I was thinking about this last night. Why is it? Cause I mean, something I've been thinking about for a while. Like, why is it that this Brunson, Deuce, Josh Hart lineup, these three guys together on the floor, why have they been so good together over like the course of their minutes together over 3 years? Why is that the case? What's the reason? And then you start looking at this stretch that we had without him, and obviously the not having a point of attack defender in that starting lineup is very obvious, and why Deuce adds value to it. And obviously, Deuce is a good shooter, whatever. We know those things. And that's very evident of why that might be contributing to it. But you think about how opponents have been able to get the Knicks out of their rhythm offensively, get them out of sets, get them out of things. And one thing that I feel is unheralded or maybe not discussed enough, and I'm saying that about myself, that I myself am guilty of this, is Josh Hart is not the world's best ball handler. Certainly not in the half court. But he is probably the strongest ball handler the Knicks have in when opponents dial up the physicality. Josh can play through that. Josh does play through that. He can handle that. He can handle that ball pressure at times in ways that
I would still take Clarkson and Kolek. I mean, he's quick and he can
playing through physicality.
Maybe in the half court, but Clarkson is better at getting to spots, I think, and so is Kolek, I think, than Hart. I get what you're saying. Like he's just able.
Don't know. I don't know if I could disagree more. Just like Clarkson historically, obviously, no question. Clarkson in 2026 now, I guess. No. And Kolek,
he takes a lot of
developing. I think Kolek's biggest issue is that he just can't. He's got to develop something going to his right. That's his biggest fundamental problem. But I think Hart connects this team in ways that are missing without him. And you can get by in some cases by having Deuce in the starting lineup instead of him, and obviously, there's more space and all that type of stuff. But those three guys together, Brunson, Deuce, and Hart, one of the reasons I think that they play so well with each other is Josh Hart is just good enough as a connective ball handler, passer, that I think it takes enough off of Brunson's table, and Brunson has a little bit more freedom, just a little bit more freedom. And right now, I don't think he has it. I don't think he has it because Mikal Bridges and OG are not playing well. Mikal is playing super soft right now. He is not playing with any level of physicality. He's getting bullied defensively, and he is shying away from contact all of the time on offense. And he's gone back to taking some of these really ridiculous, unnecessarily difficult mid-range fades over this stretch of games. And Deuce, I mean, he's not even starting right now, so that's not even worth discussing. Kolek's in a little bit of a down period after he was hot for a little while. We'll see how he develops. And then it's like, Cat's not a really strong ball handler. Mitch can't handle the ball. So you're left with very limited options then. Clarkson's been sloppy in the half court. But Yeah, like I just think they're missing Hart in a lot of ways. I think they're missing his ball handling. They're missing his ability to grab rebounds and get them out in transition and just push the tempo. They're going up against a set defense, what feels like every fucking play now because they just can't get transition points consistently. Um, yeah, like I think they're really missing Josh Hart right now. And really what this stretch of games has kind of shown me is I fully believe that when this team has their top 8, 9 guys, they're a contender. But I think like they lose any one of those guys, for them the margins are thinner than most other teams because I think this team has been constructed in a very, very specific way.
I think you can say that about a lot of players in this team. For that reason that you just said, the last sentence you said, right? This team has been constructed in a very specific way. So there isn't really a player in that top 9 group, or I'm not counting Diawara in there, but you look at the starting 5, Deuce, um, I think all of those, yeah, so let's say those 6 guys, 7 including Hart, right? Yeah. Because Hart, neither of them start when Mitch is starting. I think those 7 guys, you can't, you see, I mean, you see what they're all kind of, they're very specifically constructed, right? You miss Cat, you lose your real secondary scorer, and a floor spacer. That makes things more challenging, right? Because they don't really have a ton of shooters you can just slot in there at the 4. You lose Hart, you mentioned, right? He provides energy that they certainly seem to be lacking. Um, I think there might be more confidence in him as a screener than someone like Deuce. Do I agree with that necessarily? No, but we've seen him been able to against Miami and against Cleveland. It was really important. And I'm talking about the playoff series for Hart to be a screener and to make plays off of that. Right, he can push the ball in traffic. He helps you on the defensive glass. Right, he can. He can make some connective plays. He can even hit a tough shot once in a while, right? Off some of those. He can dribble in. He's taking some of those fadeaways and all of that. And he can. I do think what I'd probably say more than he's the best at handling ball pressure is that after like after Brunson, you don't really have rim pressure guys in this team, and Hart can get to the rim, particularly in transition, but even in the half court, maybe better than anyone else. Would you agree with that? That he's probably the second best rim pressure guy on this team?
Yes, because he can get to the rim, but he's also the best playmaker, I think, in those scenarios, aside from Brunson.
Yes.
In terms of like attacking a closeout, right? He can actually attack a closeout, and if he forces a rotation, like he's good at passing in a way that OG and Mikal just simply are not.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think Mikhail has improved, but he's not as great an improviser as Hart, and frankly, he doesn't have as much gravity in the paint, and Hart can finish and have that threat. Um, but I think any of those 7 guys, you take them off, and this team really takes a hit. That's a reason to develop more of the depth. But obviously, we know what Brunson brings. So you lose a guy like Hart, these are the things you're losing. You lose Deuce, you lose really your only reliable point of attack defender. You lose Mikal, you lose probably still your best secondary creator. He's at a bad stretch, but I think when this team is functioning at peak, he is the secondary guy. He's the one who's getting Brunson off ball, as well as obviously kind of your most Swiss Army knife defender, I guess, where he can guard the point of attack. He can switch. Obviously, without him, you have a huge defensive downgrade. Obviously, that applies to OG. Plus, both of those are better shooters than their backup wings. So I think any of those 7 guys, you lose them. You're hanging on kind of a razor's edge there. Mitch, you lose him, then you lose the offensive rebounding force, and they don't really have a proven rim protector. Even though Mitch has been very up and down as a rim protector, this is, I would say, his worst defensive season since I want to say 21, 22, maybe 22, 23. No, 22-23 came back and was really good in the playoffs. So I'd say this was his worst stretch defensively since like the beginning of that 21-22 season when everyone was struggling. Um, so, I think it just shows you, I think that's what I would highlight from what you said. It's that this is just a team where they need every single piece. There isn't a whole lot of redundancy built in, and you lose one, and it's tough to adjust.
Yeah. I think the rim pressure thing is a really good point. It's why I have felt that one of their, Kolek has obviously had some nice games. I don't know that you would call him like a dynamic dribble drive threat or anything yet. Somebody that collapses defenses. And we'll see how he develops, how he handles, the ups and downs of the regular season, how he handles the postseason. These will all be good lessons for him and good evaluation tools for the front office with where he's at moving forward. I do think they need more rim pressure for sure. It's why a guy like Io DeSimo to me would be a really nice get for them. Um, Again, is he the best rim pressure guy? No, he's not. But it's like, to me, there's no contest. Is he better than Jordan Clarkson in 2026? Yes. Like, yes. Unequivocally, yes. He's
Can we
better than Jordan
recreate
Clarkson.
can we recreate rim pressure in the aggregate? I think this is, I mean, I'm being a little facetious using that line, but I think this is something Prez has talked about a lot, right? Can you recreate that second creator in the aggregate, right? A little bit of playmaking from Bridges here, a little bit of, if they get someone like Desambu, do spacing, a little bit of Monica in my life, all can you recreate that in the aggregate? I think that's what you're saying, right? AO gets you closer to that if that's going to be the thesis of this team.
Yeah. So I think they need to go out and get something. I think they need to get another guy that can handle the ball a little bit, which has basically been the ultimate kind of like one of their big shortcomings and drawbacks since the trade for OG Anunoby is they have just lacked that one more additional ball handler. Um, Deuce is obviously he's improved, but he's not ever going to be a dynamic dribble drive threat. He just doesn't play that way. Campaign was campaign. Jordan Clarkson is not what Jordan Clarkson once was. It's still an issue. It's still an ongoing issue for them. They need to find another guy that can get into the paint with some level of consistency, preferably one who could play with Brunson. And I do think Desunmu is, I don't want to say ideal, but he fits that bill in a way that a lot of guys don't, especially considering the limited resources that the Knicks have to play with. And those resources are, right, that you're operating very tight against the second apron. You don't have many movable salaries unless you want to start chucking in actual mainstay players, some mainstay rotation players, which maybe they do. I don't get the sense they do. I don't think they do. So if you don't, then your biggest salaries are Yabu and Dadier, and that gets you up to like 8 million. And think there's not many guys, and you gotta trade for less money than you're sending out. So the list of players that you're targeting shrinks just drastically because of those financial limitations. And Desunmu is one of the few guys in that bracket that could give them a boost, which is why I've been kind of harping on him as an option. We'll see what
What would
they
a
do
trade look?
there.
What are you going to send for him though, and why would Chicago? They have to pay him, right? That's the reason you.
Yeah, they'd have to pay him next. They have to pay him this summer. It's him and Kobe White. They're both free agents, so
they're going to pick Kobe.
I don't particularly buy they're going to keep both.
What would a trade like that even look like? I mean, we're not sending Mitch, I would imagine.
Yabu Dadier picks. That's it. That's very basic. There's
pick.
nothing else that's going to happen.
Yeah,
whatever it might be. I mean, who knows? The Washington pick might be too good to give up at this point because they look like they're going to fucking win every game now.
Well, they might get Trae Young.
Yeah, yeah, right. That'll crater them. Then we're looking at high seconds again. But yeah, look, other than external solutions though, like the Knicks need to.
Can I propose one?
Look internally.
Can I propose?
Sure.
What if I told you there was a guy who has a .8 positive DPPM, 6'9" wingspan at 6'2", career 36% three-point shooter, taking 21% of his shots at the rim this year, and shooting 72% on them on a solid team. And you could get him for Yabu and a pick. Yabu straight up.
Okay, I'm just gonna move on.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
We have the structure, the bones of a good trade here. I would prefer him in the Clarkson role. I mean, he's playing well, Schwinn. You gotta admit that.
Why the fuck is Minnesota
Ayo
going to trade him if he's playing well?
Because Yabu might fit them better, and they might want to give Dillingham another chance.
So we're good. Okay, we're good. No, I don't want Bones Island on this team. Man.
I was right.
Nope, I'm never going to.
Never early.
Don't like him.
Never wrong. Just early.
But yeah, I think the Knicks need to get another ball handler. I do think they need to do that. I think that's probably why we've seen them get connected to Alvarado. There was some, I don't remember if Edwards was positing a trade or suggesting they had interest in Io. But he was somebody that was raised by Edwards in a piece in The Athletic. So either of those guys to me, Keon Ellis. But Keon Ellis, I don't even know if that's been real or if that's just been fans kind of like hoping the Knicks would want him. But I do think that's something they need. And yeah, could they use more size on the wing? Absolutely. Absolutely they could. I don't know who you're getting for that price. I think Champagnie on Washington is one that people have talked about. Who knows if he's playing well? Like, are the Wizards want to trade him? I don't know. I have no clue. So that's something to look at. But yeah, I mean, their options are limited. Their options are limited, and they're going to be limited until the offseason. And they will have a little bit more flexibility to operate then.
Can I follow up on the secondary ball handler part? So I think you say secondary ball handler, but you're really looking for multiple things, right? You want rim pressure. We need more point of attack defense, right? Deuce is not enough. I think you would agree with that. And then a little bit of, can you create?
I would say this. I would say Deuce is not enough. I think Hart has been better this year on defense. Obviously, he's not a great point of attack defender or anything, but he's been better. And I think McCullough shows good signs. Now, can you trust McCullough offensively? That's a question. I think Diawara has shown signs. Can you trust Diawara offensively? That's a question. But I don't mind giving those are big guys opportunities right now. And like
those are big wings, right? So like against the Maxi or someone like that, that's tough to be a point of attack defender, right? Against the Maxi type or like
I don't think McCullough's a big wing.
He's like 6'6". I mean, he's not guards. You usually think of like great point of attack defenders, like against a Maxi, against a Trae Young, well, whatever happens to Trae Young, against a Pritchard, even, right? Those are usually 6'2", 6'3" types, like big wing. Even OG struggles against those kind of guards,
right? Yeah, no, I get it, but like, you're not going to stop those guys. This is like, you can't expect to go into games stopping Tyrese Maxey or Cade or whatever. You just need you have to be able to have multiple bodies that you can throw against them. Give them different looks constantly change it up, right? You just need volume. OKC they have a volume of point of attack defenders, perimeter defenders. That's it. They have a ton of them. And yeah, like maybe Caruso's the best one, but they got a lot. But they got Caruso. They have Dort. They have Cason Wallace. You can go on. They have a lot of guys that they can just throw out there. The Knicks have to have more guys they can throw out there. And if Mikal Bridges can't do it, and OG Anunoby, and I think Mikal and OG, they can do it in moments, but you don't want to put that on them anytime early in the season. Like I think you want to save that for end game situations specifically, and not until maybe you dial it up in the playoffs. But that's not what you want them doing for the most part. So, can Io be a good point of attack defender? The metrics say he's not. I can't tell you I've watched Chicago close enough to have thoughts on Io's point of attack defense, but I like what Io does offensively. He's a good spot up shooter. He's really good at attacking closeouts. He is solid around the rim. He has the size to play the off guard position next to Brunson. He can be on the ball a bit. Again, he's not the best. He's not Kyrie Irving or something, but he's a solid ball handler that can get downhill at times. Like that's ultimately what you need. You can't let don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? And so, we can sit here and I think we can disagree on what is the Knicks' biggest need, right? Some people might think, hey, Mitch is injury prone. I don't trust Tuckporty. Yabu's been a dud. We need another big guy. Some people might say, we need another wing. We need more size on the perimeter and athleticism. Fair. The argument that we're having about, we need more dribble penetration, rim pressure, whatever.
No, I'm not
Also
even.
fair.
I'm not siding on
What-
one of. I think that, but I think the guard
No,
itself.
I know you're not.
It's multiple things. So I'm curious which one
No,
you think is more important. So
between
well, we want a secondary creator, agreed. But is it? That's going to encompass multiple things: a more physical point of attack defender with some athleticism, as well as a creator. So I was curious of those, which ones
I don't have a
which one
strong
you think is
thought.
more important.
I don't have a strong thought on it, but what I will say is what is worth considering is how does an extra point of attack defender, let's say, I think, let's just say Alvarado, right? I like Alvarado. I'm not sure if I'd call him a great point of attack defender, but let's just say you do think he's a great point of attack defender. Okay, we get Alvarado. How many minutes are you reasonably looking at him playing in the postseason when you consider Brunson's going to play more, Deuce is going to play more? How many minutes are you reasonably playing Alvarado, and how many lineups can you build to put him on the floor? Because I just think he has a natural minutes cap. Whereas
that's
Ayo,
the issue with
let's
Ellis.
just say,
with Ellis, you can play him maybe next to Brunson.
Right. So Ellis would be maybe not as good a defender or impactful defender as Alvarado, maybe not as good offensively, but the fact that he can play with Brunson means, okay, you're actually getting more utility out of this guy in the minutes that really matter in the playoffs, right? So maybe Ellis is a higher value to you than Alvarado. But also, okay, let's say you get Keon Ellis and you have him and Deuce. Is that enough point of attack defense that you go into the postseason and you're like, we can be an elite defense? I don't know. I don't feel that, and maybe I'm underrating Keon Ellis. It's very possible I am. It's very possible Keon Ellis is a super impactful defender, and that by just giving him minutes that are going right now to Jordan Clarkson or something, that really vaults the Knicks to a higher level defensively, and that's what they need. I'm open to that. If the Knicks traded for Keon Ellis, I'd be fucking happy. I like Keon Ellis. But my feeling is the Knicks' ultimate ceiling is tied to what they can do on the offensive end of the floor. And I think Ayo is pretty clearly the best offensive player of those three guys. I think he has the best and most specific skill set in areas that were lacking of those three guys. And, as we mentioned, he can play alongside Brunson. And I think he can obviously play alongside Deuce, right? Deuce and Keon Ellis together, that's a little bit more dicey because now offensively it's like, all right, well, who's really creating here? I don't love the 3-guard lineups the Knicks have just because I don't think they have the right balance in those groups. I would like them more probably with different guards maybe, but we don't have those guards. So if you're just looking at the 2-man combinations of Jalen Brunson plus another guy, we know Brunson and Deuce can work, right? Can Brunson and Ayo work? Can Ayo and Deuce work? Probably. Can Brunson and Ellis work? Yes. Can Ellis and Deuce work? Maybe for short stretches and lineups that are super heavily tilted towards defense, but I don't always love going that way because defense is obviously more variable than offense. And then it's Alvarado, Brunson. I don't know. Brunson's record with when he plays alongside guards is good. That one would be challenging. I don't think you could play them big minutes in the postseason, honestly. Alvarado Deuce, I think that would be okay. Not great, but okay. And, it just, which one of those guys am I getting the most utility out of? And I think anyway, it would pretty clearly be Ayo. So if the Knicks had, if there was some world where the Knicks had the option to trade for any of those three, I think I end up on the let's go get Ayo bandwagon. But, we'll see where it ends up. But I do think this team needs more. And the front office has to own that because it's hard to say the Clarkson edition was bad, right? Because I think he's pretty clearly been worth the veteran minimum. His hot streaks are really hot and his cold streaks are really cold. And that's just the type of player he is. but he's not giving them the ball handling bump that I think they were hoping to get. I think they thought maybe he could bounce back physically and have a little more burst than he showed at the end of his time in Utah. He was dealing with an injury. That hasn't worked out. And the Yabusele thing, there's no two ways around it. It's a bust. It's a bust. It's a total dud. That was a big whiff. And maybe he'll go somewhere else and be fine, but it's not going to happen for him in New York. It is not going to happen for him. And I think it should be instructive for them that it didn't happen for him in New York, because I think it says something about the expectations for big guys in this offense. I think it puts a lot on their plate. They have to be actual decision makers on the ball, and that can put a lot of stress on them. And I think that's something that Cat's, we talked about earlier. He's talking about he needs to adjust. He needs to adjust. I think that's a big thing he's adjusting to, and I think he can get frustrated at times. But you know, um, if you are going to go after a big guy, if that's the thing that they wanted to do, then they have to keep that in mind. You have to keep in mind that ball skills, decision making, those are two paramount kind of core attributes that you need to be look at for some of these big guys if you are targeting a big man. You're on mute, Stacey.
I think it just doesn't move the needle as much. I think I think I would rather go the draft route at this point. And for now, just play Diawara more over Yabu. See what you get there. I would like to see Diawara used at times even as a small ball 5. He's got a pretty long wingspan. So I think there's solutions to that on the roster. I think ideally you'd love to get a Trey Murphy, right? My friend who's a Lakers fan asked me, "Oh, how much do you think the Pelicans would want for Trey Murphy?" I'm like, "Dude, nothing that you have, unless you're trading."
Can we get him for? Can we get him for Rui in a second round pick?
But his answer was they're the Pelicans. I was like, I mean, I think Trey Murphy's value you'd have to think is at least the Bane trade at this point, right? And I don't know why New Orleans would trade him to begin with, but that should be the value for Trey Murphy at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Trey Murphy's going to go for a lot. I actually don't think he's going to get traded. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think, look, the stretch of games for the Knicks has not been good. They have a chance to bounce back tonight. They're back home in the Garden against the Clippers. The Clippers have been good lately. They just beat Golden State the other night, 103-102. But this is not a highly athletic team. There's just not a team that's going to get you, out in transition into an open court game and push the tempo. Like, this is going to be they will not have that advantage over the Knicks. We know that Josh Hart is still out. Landry Shamet remains out. Apparently he might be back in a week or two. Jesus. So we'll see how that goes. And yeah, but I think this is a big game for them. I think this is a big game for the Knicks. They've gotten mollywopped here for
Is it an aspirational
the better part
game?
of 4 games.
It's an aspirational game that could
is.
plant the seed for a great growth for the rest of the year. So,
yes, but they need to step up here. Like, there's no two ways about it. They've gotten embarrassed on their home court the last 2 times they played there. They've not been in a good way. The body language has not been great on the court now recently with these guys either. Like, they look frustrated. They look pissed. They look like they don't even want to fucking play. These last few games, like they don't even want to be on the floor together. That has to change. It has to change now. You can't let things like this fester. Winning is a habit, and just like winning is a habit, losing is a habit, and you don't want those things to persist. So, they've got it. They've got a lot to do here. They've got a lot to turn around, and they've got to come together as a team. Because either we heal together here today as a team, or we will fall as individuals. Al Pacino, thank you. Shout out. No, but they do. Like, they have not played together, right? More than anything, that's actually probably what stings the most about this run of games is they are not playing together. They are not playing for each other. You need to kind of get back to that. sacrificing for one another, making those extra rotations, hustling on the floor for loose balls. And look, I will just continue to say it. The Clippers are not a team that I would be. I'll just if the Knicks go double big in this game, I'll be very annoyed. I'll be annoyed. I'll continue to be annoyed about it. I don't think you need to do that, but they are threatening. They are a threat, right? James Harden is obviously still a good ball player. Kawhi's been on a tear. Brooke Lopez has been kind of figuring it out. They have Zubac coming off the bench right now, which is another reason why I think that you might want to fucking bring Mitch off the bench rather than start double big. This is not a bad team. They're now kind of hitting their stride and playing to their actual level since they got rid of Chris Paul, who what a final year for Chris Paul. But this is a big game. There's really no two ways about it. I don't want to say it's a must-win game, but it is a must-show-up game. They cannot come out and give up 35 in the first quarter and be down 9 at halftime and 15 midway through the third. And no, they've got to compete. They've got to fight. They have to be in this game. They've got to show some fucking verve. Yeah, I think that's like we've talked a lot about the players. I think it's on Mike Brown too, man. Like reward the right guys. Like it's great talking about we need to be more physical. We need more point of attack defense. Okay. Show me we need that. Show me we need that with your rotations, with the guys you're handing minutes to. And if you don't, then I don't want to hear about it because you don't value it then. So show me you value it the way you're talking about it. Right? Like that's what I want to see tonight. I want to see a better effort from the players. And I want to see more logical I want to see more logical and maybe shortened rotations in some ways from Mike Brown. I think he's gotten a little too crazy trying to do these little 3 minutes here, 2 minutes there. Okay, like Yabusele doesn't need to play. Maybe Jordan Clarkson doesn't need to play. Get guys on the floor that are going to compete defensively, that are going to give you energy, that are going to hustle. Because if that's what you're telling me you're missing, if you're telling me you're missing physicality, if you're telling me you're missing point of attack defense, then play the guys that actually do those things. Show me that you mean that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, you just want to see them get back to their identity. I do think in terms of shaping that identity, there probably needs to be a little bit more. Guys have been in and out of the lineup. This isn't on Brown even majority, but it's kind of with the double big. I think double big is good for them to have in their back pocket. But this team's identity, as we've talked about all offseason, is going to be offense first. It's going to be playing with energy on the offensive end. Forcing the opponents to take the ball out of the net, and then allowing OG and Mikal to wreak havoc off the ball. That's the identity of this team. You throw in Mitch to muck up the game, get some offensive rebounds, and play a little bit more physical. That's a good change up, right? So I think it's getting back to that identity, and I do think it's worth getting into shaking things up. Be vocal at the refs, get in their face, hold Brunson accountable, right? I will take care of it. You get back on defense. You're never going to be Patrick Beverley at the point of attack, but you need to do a better job getting through screens. And when he's getting beat up, then everybody else got to step up too, right? So you want to see that. You just want to see that return to form. And it'll be interesting to see.
I want to see Mikal Bridges fight through. He's taking all these wide angle attempts at the rim. Bro, just fucking. You can take a hit. Take a hit. It's fine. You're gonna live. Your games played streak will not be snapped. He's going out of his way to avoid contact to a level that is so extreme it doesn't even make sense. Enough with that. Fight over a fucking screen. Fight over a screen. This guy was playing great for the first 25 games of the year. He's been absolutely miserable of late. OG Anunoby, same thing. You're a huge fucking guy. How are you using this frame? You're I'll tell you what, if he's just going to sit there and mirror Kawhi Leonard today and not kind of get into him at all, Kawhi might go for fucking 60. He might have the billing record the way he's playing, if that's the case. So, yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I just felt like I wanted to say that because I feel like we've talked a lot about Cat. We talked a lot about Brunson, Hart, Deuce, whatever. OG and Mikal have been terrible in this stretch too, and like that should be said.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the whole team besides Deuce really has not showed up. I think that giving DOR some more minutes, um, you know, could be a good way to make that point, right? That like, hey, you want to be here, um, you need to um, you need to do more. And we have guys that even if we take a hit, they're going to play it the way we want to play, and that is more important at this point in many ways than just being the legacy guy. So definitely interested to see if what kind of adjustments Brown will make. Um, both in terms of the vocalness and getting into the refs, getting into guys. Is he going to is he going to make an example and say you're going to sit for a bit, right? Cat, you're not playing with much force. We'll try Dior at the five. We'll throw Hugporty in. And sometimes it can help to just detach a bit for some of these guys. And if everything is happening and if you need to get out of your own head a little bit, sometimes it's not even punishment. It's getting them to sit. But I do agree that you would like to see at least some of the trends we've seen over the last few games start to reverse tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned earlier the Knicks are still the favorite in the East by FanDuel. They're plus 260. The Celtics are actually second now in the East at plus 410, which is impressive. The Knicks are 4.5 point favorites today against the Clippers. Again, this is on FanDuel. So definitely, you know, I think this is a game the Knicks should win. I think they will win. I think they are going to have a response tonight. And that's good. Like if they win and have a response, that's great. It needs to lead back into a sustained level of play. And we've talked about the physicality and the defense. I think they've gotten away from their principles offensively too. They're down. So for this before the last 11 games, they were averaging 296 passes per game. Since then, they're averaging 280. So that's a bit of a drop off. I think you can feel that when you're watching these games that there's less movement, less ball movement, less player movement. I know part of that is because Mike Brown and this had been happening, even leading into the cup final when they were playing well, he had been leaning more into letting Brunson go cook in ISOs, setting up Cat in advantageous positions and stuff like that, where there was less passing and teamwork and kind of ball player movement sets involved. But it's really dropped off now. And I think it's gotten to a level where they're not even executing sometimes. They are getting really easily pushed off their spots and moved around. They're not fighting for it. But they've got to get back to it. They've got to get back to playing with some purpose and energy in their cutting and their screening and all these things. And the Clippers are playing better, but this is not a team that you should just feel like it feels like a good spot for the Knicks. If you're and good in the way that like beating a team like the Clippers the way they're playing right now, it would allay some fears, I think. Where you're like, okay, they beat a good team, they handled their business against a good team. That's the other thing too, right? It's not just that they've lost these last four stretch games. They haven't really just pounded a team in a long time. It's been a while since they just really laid it on a team. And that was a hallmark really of like the early kind of first quarter to 1/3 of the season even is they were never playing crunch time games. Like they were either winning by a lot or they lost by like 10 or whatever, but like they were just pounding teams into submission and they have not done that. And that's because their defense has been atrocious to start games and then stayed atrocious throughout. And their offense has dipped and is more good rather than elite. So it would be a good time for them to reverse those trends because they really need they really need a win tonight. They need it, and I don't mean that in the sense of like it's a must-win game. I think they need it for their own collective, like to turn the tide and kind of make things feel good again.
Make the Knicks great again.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I do want to. Sorry, before I know we're. I do want to ask this. Like we talked about Brunson's leadership. Have you seen? Can you think of like an example of like not him, but like a corollary where someone that was typically known as that's not an issue, struggling a little bit in to energize the team. I think Steph is going through it a little bit right now in Golden State, but I think that's a lot more of the roster than him. I was almost thinking about like Matt Saracen, his his junior year when he's like fighting with Smash, and he's like getting drunk with Tim Riggins before practice and stuff. I don't think I need to like that. That is obviously happening with Brunson, but
You think Brunson's getting fucked up with like
he's going to the
Huck
landing
Forde
strip.
before practice?
I don't think Huck Porty's the
Yeah.
Tim Riggins of the Tim Riggins is I mean, it's hard, I guess, right? But I'm curious, what
Kolek.
have you seen similar things like this that's disconcerting from a star player? I don't think Allen has gone or Josh Allen has gone through this kind of stuff. You talked about, that he is a better leader. But what you specifically want to see from Brunson, if there's examples of guys that have made the kind of jump you want to see Brunson make.
I mean, more than anything, I would just like him to like get back to basics, man. Get back, like, just as an example, how many times this year is he forcing those moving screens? Not as many. Anecdotally, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would say anecdotally, he definitely has not. He's not done that as much. He is not taking as many charges this year. And that's fine. Like, I get it. He's 29. You're getting older. He's a smaller guard. Maybe that's part of him taking care of his body. I get that. But then you got to be sharper on your P's and Q's, right? Like, you've got to be better about getting over screens, not trailing plays. I mean, there's so many times he's like a second behind his man as he starts trailing a guy, the guy's already around the screen. Like, he's got to be more impactful defensively, not be a high impact defender, but really just don't be a fucking disaster level defender, which is he really has been a disaster level defender here for a couple weeks. Just a fact. He's better than that. He needs to be better than that. And I'd like to see that. I'd like to see him just can we have a game where you don't start in on the refs within the first fucking call that you think they miss? It's like again, that Atlanta game, he got hit 3 times in a row on it was like 3 straight possessions. He got hit in the head or something like that. And I get it. It's frustrating. When you're screaming at them after the first one, yeah, like I know refs shouldn't do this, but they're human. Like, they're just going to be like, all right, fuck this guy. Like, it's going to be one of those nights. And, I think, again, I do think that him and SGA have been made the poster boys for grifting. And as a result, they're getting a bad whistle right now. That'll turn. It'll turn. Once the NBA finds some other thing that they need to, focus on, it'll turn. But he's got to lead the team. He has to set the example. Keep your fucking cool. Like, that's really, I think, what is going. He's playing like on tilt in a lot of ways, and it doesn't make sense to me. Like, you should not be pressing this much to prove whatever it is you're trying to prove. He's playing very much on tilt. I think he needs to gather himself, be cool, be collected, don't get distracted, because I think it's seeping into other stuff. He's taking weird shots. He's passing up on open looks and then dribbling and taking a more contested shot. Like, he's not playing clean. I think his process is a little cluttered. So yeah, like that's really what I want to see. I just want to see his process improve and make good decisions. Make good decisions, compete, do the basics on defense. If he does those things, I'm a happy camper. Because if he does those things, then his offense will be great enough that you're good. Like, you're fine. That's all you need. But he has to deliver that. And he just hasn't done that lately. Do I think that he will get back to it? Yeah, of course I do, because his track record suggests that's the type of player he is. But, in this moment in time, he has not been doing it, and he needs to turn it around for sure.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right. I think that's a good place to end this. Thank you to everybody for the comments. Appreciate all that. Stacy, let the people know we can find you and plug anything that you'd like to plug.
You can find me at Stacy. Well, first of all, Happy New Year, everyone. I didn't get to say it at the beginning, but hope everyone had a good holiday. I don't think I've seen you guys since then. You can find me at StacyPadden89 on on Twitter, whatever you call it, and nothing to plug.
Yes, happy New Year to everybody. Thank you again to everybody for the comments, even if you think I shouldn't thank you.
We don't want to
Appreciate
berate
it.
you guys.
Appreciate everybody for listening. Yeah, appreciate everybody for listening. That is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great week. I hope the Knicks have a fucking better week than they did last week. And thank you to our sponsor, FanDuel. And I will see you all on Friday. Peace.